Jan. And
And Amanda.
Amanda.
I think Rick has met Amanda, has not. Dean Stock
Good to meet you, Dean. Good to see you again.
and Jack Benson.
Amanda.
Jack.
Hello.
Timing.
Catch
What
up
perfect
to us.
timing.
Sorry,
Oh,
let's
good.
have this.
All righty.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Good.
You just getting your
We
toes?
just started.
Then
Oh, good.
I
Tom, how are ya?
But we haven't even started. We just.
Hi, Tom.
How are you?
We're
Just bring another chair
running
if
a
you
little
want.
late then.
Okay.
All right.
I did introduce Amanda to a few of you. We've done some restructuring at Walmart Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I will be working on groups 6 to 50 in size. My territory is expanding. Amanda's territory is also expanding, but she's going to be working on groups 51 to 750, I believe it is. So she will be your new account manager.
I've seen a lot of you, or some of you in the past couple of years at the schools. And I work actually with the ISAC and
Oh, we'll share.
Walmart plan as well, so those
Okay.
24 counties, we were talking about that last time, and several other counties, one with Tom that's outside of ISAC and other ones. I think I have 31 counties in total, so we're
And I'm in charge of
the
remembering.
so. Happy to be working with you guys, so.
So going over your renewal information, I know Amanda has emailed you what the renewal looks like, and we'll get into the details of this. Someone new has put together some of this information, so the letter is probably, has a few errors in it, so we're just going to gloss over that. You will get to the heart of the renewal, and that's tab 1. The second page of tab 1, your current plan, which is a $2,000 deductible, $6,000 out-of-pocket max with a maximum of 3 deductible potential in the family, $25 office visit copay, emergency room copay of $200, and then your drugs, your prescriptions being covered at $835.50, and if you're taking name brand, there is an annual deductible of $100 single, $200 family. Now, these rates are your current rates. The renewal rates, we're looking at a 16.21% increase, and I'll go through the detail of that and why it's doing what it's doing. This plan, as we talked earlier, this is non-grandfathered because you changed last year, even though you did not change your self-funding. It was the administrative decision at Walmart. Any plan change with Walmart automatically puts you in a non-grandfathered status, and it was not negotiable. I went back to them several times saying, but nothing has changed here, and that is just our administrative business decision at Walmart. And I know Tom's questioned that. It is what it is.
Opinion.
Yeah, well, it's not even legal, so it's a business decision, okay?
Okay.
Which we knew.
Which you know.
Which
I
we
mean,
knew, and it had no background as far as legal. It was a business.
It was a business
Yeah.
decision, right. So with that, the benefits as of January 1st include the preventative services covered at 100%. So anything coded preventative, anything from a routine physical to a routine mammogram to a routine colonoscopy is 100% covered. There's no cost share to the employees. Smoking cessations are now a covered item. As of January 1st, they were not covered as well. So if somebody goes to the doctor, they want to stop using tobacco, that office visit is not covered. Now they will pay the appropriate copay on that, and any medications to assist them in quitting using tobacco will also be a covered benefit, and in the past that has not been. So with that being said, we've got a little disclosure here. I'm not going to go through it because it really has not changed from last year. Behind tab 2, and again, let's go right to the second page. This is the adjustment that we're seeing. Okay, the 16.21% 10.32% of that is base rate change. All groups 51 to 100 renewing the third quarter of 2011 are seeing this adjustment. This is just due to increased cost, increased technology, increased practice patterns. It is not specific to Sac County. So every group 51 plus renewing is seeing this adjustment in base rate. Underwriting and group considerations. They're saying your claims are higher than what they would like to see, so based on your claims, diagnosis, prognoses, they're giving you a 1.89% increase on underwriting and group considerations. And we'll go into the details of claims in just a bit. Demographics, the people that have left your group, the people that have come onto your group. So the turnover in your group, that has adjusted a negative 1.04. So I don't know if there were a few older people that have left your group. That's basically what that kind of says to me.
People are skipping birthdays.
Skipping birthdays? Or they're retiring and saying, we've had enough.
I might skip a few. I've had enough.
My grandmother always said it's better than the alternative, and she died at 100. So, plan value, 3.02. The majority of this is due to the grandfather issue. So that's where that factor is coming in.
We don't want the grandfather.
Now, that's going to hold your claim, that's going to bring your claims down. Didn't we talk about that, Rick?
It didn't stay with me, yeah. You didn't convince me.
Family composition, that's if you have a four-way rate structure. You do not. So it's, there's nothing not applicable because of that. Group size adjustment, you're not getting smaller, you're not getting bigger. If you go above 100, there's going to be adjustment. If you go below 51, there's going to be adjustment there. But you're not seeing anything there. Area factor, we look at where your claims are coming in from your people and the costs of those claims in the area. So we look at 5 areas of the state plus out-of-state claims. And we're looking at what those costs are in alignment to other area factors. And we're saying the cost of the claims where your people are receiving treatment are a little higher than in some of the other areas. So that's a 1.41. So that all combined together gives you that 16.21% adjustment. On the next page, any questions on that? No? Okay. On the next page are your raw claims or your covered charges. So they're not paid claims, they're covered charges. Your covered charges for this last year, 1.3 million versus 1.2 million the year before. Then we list all claims, again, covered claims that came in over 10,000. Last year, you had 33 members with claims over 10,000. This year, you have 30 members with claims over 10,000. Of those 30 people, I'm just trying to think. Of those 30 people, 10 members are repeat. So they had large claims over 10,000 last year. They've got large claims over 10,000 this year. So we've got 3 pages of those, and your total large claims, the previous year were 866,000, this year 891,000. So again, those are the covered claims. On the next page, we get into actual paid claims. So on your annual paid claims, we've got covered charges. Now, these covered charges are not going to match with the other report because it does not have the drugs in it. That's on a separate sheet. But if you add, we've got another page here of prescription drug charges, but they will total the $1.3 million. So you had covered charges last year and your current year, so those are up 8.3%. It breaks it down into inpatient, outpatient, office, and other. Now, when you look at the covered charges, when you take the claims paid on those covered charges, we've got paid claims of $500,000, $504,000. Those are up 26% from last year. So whatever procedures the members had, the discounts were not as big as the year before. So we've got paid claims going up a little over $100,000, about $104,000. We've got covered charge per member increased 2.3%, but again, when you break that down into actual paid charges, claims paid per member, 2,322,000. So that's up 19.1%. When you look at your, for this time period, when you look at this time period, we have paid out, we being Blue Cross Blue Shield, have paid out about 103% on every premium dollar that you put in versus about 90% last year. So it's right at 103%. You do have a little small increase in membership, and remember, a member is anybody covered under your policy. So if you've got a family of 5, that's 5 members. So that's how that's determined.
And the other thing to consider, Deanna had mentioned, which is a good point, half of this year was your old plan with the lower deductible, and half of this year the claims are being paid on that higher deductible plan. So even though you you higher your deductible, lowered your risk for the Wellmark piece of things, the claim still went up $100,000.
I don't know if that's reflected in the partial self-funding or not,
Yeah.
to some degree,
Some degree,
yeah,
yeah.
to some degree.
Yeah.
Okay, and the next page is your prescription medications. When you look at your generic usage on your group, 74% of all prescriptions filled are generic versus the Wellmark's average book of business, 74.5. The dollar covered charge per RX is $88 for your group versus Wellmark's book of business, 96.82. So that's just saying your people don't use as many expensive drugs as their average book of business. The number of RXs per member per year, so this is whether you've had a prescription filled or not, is 11.49 prescriptions per member versus Walmart's book of business at 12.07. Or I'm saying a prescription, if you're on high blood pressure and have 12 refills, that is considered 12 prescriptions. The dollar covered charge per member per year then is $1,012 versus Wellmark's book of business, $1,168. So you're still a little under Wellmark's book of business. Then we take out everybody that does not have one prescription. So you have to make this next class, you at least have had to have one prescription filled this year. And that's the number of RXs per utilizer per year. So your group, each member using a prescription averages 13.93 prescriptions a year versus Walmart's book of business at 13.89. And then we break that down to the dollar cover charge per utilizer, which brings it up from the number of RXs per member per year when you get into the actual utilizers. So you had covered prescription drug charges of $219,600. Pharmacy savings, so we do use a pharmacy manager and get discounts. On the next page then, just lists all of the members that you have covered, and it runs from youngest to oldest. You've got 23 single, you've got 28 people that just have spouses covered with no children, and that will tend to be your older population. Then you've got employed children that does not have a spouse, you've got 3, and then 32 family contracts. So again, when you look at this listing of people, it will tell you on health type contract, even though it's a family, employed spouse is a family, employed children are a family, but you can also see on the employed spouse children, when it says dependents, that tells you how many children they actually have covered on the policy. Now, remember that a child now can be covered up to age 26. The first page runs from age 23 to 43, the next page 44 to 54, the next page 54 to 65, and then you've got a couple on the other page that are 65 plus. So again, youngest to oldest. Any questions about your census?
I think I'm on the wrong page.
You think you're on the wrong
Be
page?
younger.
You wish you were on the wrong page.
I should help you. Help you find the right thing.
Rick got moved to another page.
Thursday.
Well, I seem to be on the last page.
Save the best for last.
Oh,
I'm not
job,
pointing
Tom.
anybody out.
We are though.
She tried to kind of glaze over it. She did pretty good.
You knew it was only a matter of time. You had to be proactive.
Oh, heck. I'm still in the family plan, so my wife gets pregnant.
You do have maternity coverage. In working with Amanda, and like I said, she is handling a lot of county, she handles a lot of the ISAC. You know, she said, well, maybe ISAC's an issue, or could be, you know, something viable for you, and I said, no, look at the rates.
I don't
And
think
she
so.
said, you're right, no, we know that.
It's not
But
even
it's something,
close.
no, it's not even close. Okay, behind tab 3 then begins what your options are. And there's just a couple of them, and since Tom's here, I'm gonna kind of ask him too. When you look at, again, the second page, you go to, actually, the third page here. The plan that you have is the C95 APJ, the $2,000 deductible. Last year you had the $1,500 deductible plan. You know, to go down to the next deductible, to the $2,500 deductible, you know, doing partial self-funding may work for you. The biggest problem here is the office visit copay at that point goes from $25 to $30. Else, everything else stays the same. But that would get the percentage of change from 16.21 to 7.85, or even going to a $3,000 deductible. Again, I don't know how your partial self-funding is doing.
2,500.
You-
Get a rough
Okay.
calculation on that.
Did
Yeah.
you look at all these primary plans that we have out here?
Well, I wanted to chat with the group first.
Okay.
And see
Okay,
how they
okay.
felt about the split copays.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
yeah, it's a good, you want to bring that up. That's a
Yeah,
good-
there was a new plan that was available last year. We probably did not introduce it at all last year, but it was a fairly new plan, and let's look at it and see if it would work or will not work for you. So that is, flip 2 pages. And there's some pros and cons on this plan. It's called Alliance Select Primary Plan. So if you're looking at the top here, it should say Alliance Select Primary Plan. Okay, let's just look at the $2,000 deductible plan on here. And I will point out the differences that you're going to see on this plan. Bottom line is, instead of 16.2%, this is a 12.27%. You still have your $2,000 deductible. You've got your family deductible times 3 of $6,000. You have your 30%, which you have now. However, when you look at your out-of-pocket max, right now, if somebody has a catastrophic illness, and you've had 5 or 6 of them, the maximum liability is $6,000. Here it's $4,000, so it's double your deductible and not triple your deductible. So that means less exposure to you as a county because of those high dollar claims by $2,000. Where it starts looking different is when you get to your office visit copays. On your office visit copays, you've got 2 levels of copay. You've got a primary care type provider and a non-primary care type provider.
So the specialist is what you're saying is the
Right,
secondary.
right. Let's look down at the special notes and provisions at the bottom. The PCP type, and you don't have to name a primary care type provider. It just depends upon how that doctor, runs the coding through what he's listed as, is a specialist or a primary care type provider. It's a general family practitioner, an internist, OB, GYN, pediatrician, physician assistant, and nurse practitioner. So any of those codings coming through as a doctor will pay at a $25 copay. Anybody else not listed here, so any type of specialist, including chiropractors, has a $50 copay. So it's a chiropractor, it's a physical therapist, it's a cardiologist, it's an orthopedic, anybody that has a specialty, it's a $50 copay. And that's what the member is liable for, is that $50. The emergency room copay goes from $200 to $250. And then there's a little difference on the prescription drug coverage. Is this something you think you could?
I don't know.
Like I said, it greatly reduces your liability, but then from the members, they've got a $25 or $50 copay. And again, I am every time I present this, I make sure people know that specialty degree includes chiropractors, because I don't want any surprises.
It's
lot.
physical therapy too.
Physical
Yeah.
therapy, yeah,
Yeah.
anybody,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I said physical therapy, cardiologist, or any specialty, oncologists, any specialty doctors.
For my knowledge, are you in the middle of a contract, or how do those things work from a insurance perspective, from a union negotiation?
No, we're completing the first year, and we'll be into the second year. We've built the budget for the second year of a 3-year contract.
Okay. Can you make these types of plan changes in the middle of a contract then, or?
Our arrangement now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ron, is that it will be what the whole entity has without any huge change.
Yeah.
Right interpretation.
They're basically gonna have similar coverage to what they got now. I mean, you can change the,
I mean, they also have the option of potentially partial self-funding that $50, right, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, you have all
yeah,
those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sure.
okay.
But the contract, the arrangement is that the union will have what the entity has without, I don't recall the wording, it says something about not having a significant change.
yeah.
So that's kind of.
And they get, they have the option for 3 plans, just like,
Yeah, everybody's on the same
Back down
page,
to, yeah.
and we're all working together now.
So this is a plan because of the out-of-pocket max being greatly reduced. I've got a lot of groups looking at. They have some concerns about the higher copay, but again, when you look at what is it going to cost me in a catastrophic illness, and this isn't people that do self-funding,
I'm-
4,000 sounds better than 6,000.
I'm disappointed that they're including the chiropractor as a specialty. I mean, that seems unfair.
And in most cases, the chiropractic charge are not even that, so they're paying the bill charge
Sure.
for that. And I agree, but that's why I pointed out, because I don't.
Yeah,
want
and I
those
appreciate that. I
surprises.
just, as a plan though, I guess I'm disappointed that it would be excluded from.
Yeah, it would be a lot easier plan to look at if that one area
I think so too.
was included. I agree.
This is, I'm trying to remember what the usage was by the group of chiropractic. It was like 380 or something like that.
I don't think we have that.
It's not identified.
No, that's not ever given that information. I don't have it by provider type.
Would you have it as a history as far as what
Usage?
Well, could it be determined as to what would apply for this other option? I mean,
How many, I don't believe.
and not, but that would also include the specialties of cardiology or
Okay.
whatever else you might.
No,
For larger groups, we look at that type of information, but at your size, unfortunately, I mean, we could request that type of report, but sometimes.
Well, maybe our provider, our group,
Or something.
maybe we have that. Somewhere,
Have you seen it?
I
I
don't know, just.
Well, I may have those reports downstairs, they kind of list.
I mean, it'd be just good information.
Sure.
I've got report, it's claims paid from July 1 of last year through the end of February. And we had, in that time period, we had 194 chiropractic claims.
So, yeah, that's 350.
So that's roughly about 8 months.
So 350 times 20 is, I mean, if the copay,
25, yeah.
It'd be 25.
make a difference.
Right now it's 25, and
Yeah,
and
it
if
goes up to 50.
50 would be different.
So in my case, it'd be, well, I mean, it's just about $20-25 loss.
And then my
Yeah, that's on the
specialist
1,000, or
Sometimes
that's
three.
on plan 2.
would be $50 copay for me.
But that, and that's just one area.
That's
Or if
about,
they bill
I mean,
us-
any
Right.
other specialty that
yeah.
Jack, if they,
But it's a per
most of the time the
town.
cost is
Right.
40, in the $40 range, so you would pay that amount to bill.
yeah, let's just say it is $350, and that's not even for a full year, that's about $9,000.
Oh, no, that's on the plan 2, on
Yeah,
the
that's about
plan 1, it's
But that's
108.
the other
Oh,
important.
you've got, okay.
The other
Yeah,
important
350
part of
includes
that,
both
that
of them,
doesn't
or no?
include any other specialties. That's just chiropractic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will say, like, for ISAC's plans for since the inception in 1982, they've always had co-insurance upon an office visit setting, which does kind of the same thing that this does, the split copay does. You go see a cardiologist, it costs you $250, $300, you're paying 20%, 30%, so you're gonna pay a higher amount for a cardiologist. In the event of a chiropractor, obviously, it's actually a lower copay, so that's a little bit different. But the logic is the specialists typically are a higher cost to the plan.
I've had some groups that have gone to the split copay, and what they've done is they found that there were maybe 2 or 3 chiropractors that
service the majority of
really
their
took
group.
care, and so in what we found is the cost for the office visit was generally less than what that copay would be. So what those groups have done, they just went to those chiropractors and said, hey, we're gonna move to this plan because of for financial reasons. And the chiropractors are familiar with this plan design. And so in those instances, what they've done is they've just negotiated, said, you know what, this is going to become a cash transaction. And so you don't have to, we're going to save you the paperwork. You don't have to spend the office time filing claims because there's not going to be any. So can we just agree on a cash price? And so it depends, but sometimes they've gotten some discounts, so you know it's a flat dollar amount for each, because it's going to be a cash transaction anyway, so you say, you don't need to file claims. And try to work through it that way. That's one way to do it. And as Deanne said as well, the other option, if the numbers work out and it makes sense, is we could figure out, based on claims activity, how much might that cost us out of the self-funded part of the plan if we wanted to take advantage of the premium savings, but still not have chiropractic, for example, be, and maybe it makes sense for a cardiologist, for example, to pay that higher copay because the cost is higher, but chiropractic, we don't want to do that. Can we pull those out and keep those at the 25? So those are options as well. We could look at the numbers if everything else worked out and there was an interest in this.
Yeah, premium savings, if you stayed with $2,000 deductible, premium savings is about $2,000 a month.
You talked about physical therapists, so you're talking about physical therapy like you get after a knee surgery or something?
Yeah.
Now,
So
if it's,
you were throwing them in the same
okay,
category as a specialist, like some physical therapists are doctors and others aren't.
yeah, no, if it's a physical therapy,
Service?
service included as physical therapy. Now, if it's done at the hospital, a lot of those times those don't have co-pays, those are subject to your co-insurance. But if it's a independent physical therapists, those are office visit co-pays, and that would be coded as a specialist.
Even though they're ordered by the doctor that did the surgery or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
We're on pace for about, between the two plans, actually about 440 chiropractic visits this year.
But again, that's still only that's a percentage of, I mean, you still have, who knows how many other, because quite often,
What percentage of Blue Cross is derived, premium revenue from group plans as opposed to individual plans? Would half the business be group plans or half?
Oh, no, more than half
More
are
than
group
Okay.
plans. I think
Like
maybe, I was gonna say, my guess would be about 30% would be individual, the rest would be group. What I don't know, Tom, and you may not have this information, how many people went above the 4,000 that, you would recruit, you wouldn't have that additional liability. So you've got to look at your specialists in that, but then you also have to look at how many people claims went above 4,000 where this would cap at 4,000. I mean, I think there's about 6 people that hit the 6,000. So that would be, 6 times 2,000 would be $12,000 in savings. I know there's several in between
Yeah, I'd
that.
have to go back and look at that. Yeah, I don't
It
know.
might almost offset it.
It could, but again, then you have to deal with another piece of this. And I don't know if the savings offsets the piece you have to deal with.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the numbers and see.
Because there are a couple other changes on this plan. One is, right now, infertility. If somebody has infertility problems, it's covered up to the diagnosis only. Beyond that, it's not a payable benefit. So that's your current plan. On this primary plan, it's not even covered, none of the testing is covered even to determine diagnosis. So if it's anything infertility related, it's just not covered. So that is the one thing in the health contract that does change. And then there is a change on the prescription drug program on this primary plan too. One of the changes is anybody using mail order right now can get a 90-day supply for 2 co-payments. Under this plan, it's a 90-day supply for 3 co-payments. And then there's a 4th tier added. Right now you get $835.50 with the deductible. In this plan you have $835.50 with the deductible, but you also have a potential of $85 copay. Those are for your self-injectable drugs. So if you're on a self-injectable drug, an oncology drug, MS, rheumatoid arthritis, those are drugs that can cost anywhere from $1,200 up to $5,000 a month. Right now they're paying $50 for those. They would be paying $85 for that prescription. And then there's about a listing of about 40 drugs that are more convenience type drugs where they may be time-released drugs. There's something, so they may only have to take them once a week or once a day versus 2 or 3 times a day. And those convenience type drugs are $85 drugs. We actually have listing of what those drugs are. So
I think my initial reaction, there are enough exclusions here that I would rather not.
Okay.
I mean, there are enough changes and exclusions that I'm concerned about that.
Well, like I said, they have worked for some people, but they're not particularly union plans that I'm working with, so that,
Well, who determines some of these fees, as far as whether you're seeing the doctor or this nurse practitioner?
depends upon how the billing comes through. If it's billed,
Because many times I go to the doctor, but I never see the doctor. My Wellingdorf that I go to, I haven't seen him for a year, but I go to the doctor and I just see this nurse.
because it's coming through a specialty area though, it would be
And
billed as
still-
a specialist.
Because it kind of disappoints me when I go to the doctor, and I don't get to see the doctor.
Yeah.
'Cause they
I
just
mean,
probably
actually,
don't
they
use
could
his
do
name.
my exam over the
Yeah,
telephone.
yeah, they- yeah.
How you feeling? What, no, okay. You know,
And you get a $20 bill for that, right?
it's 125, whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I don't know what the insurance gets, I can
I
imagine
was good,
that.
that's what I was.
$50 instead. It's kind of a shot across the bow. It's interesting to see how they respond to this.
Like I said, I wanted to bring it to your attention and at least go through the pros and cons of it.
We wanna, we wanna look at all
Yeah,
options.
yeah.
And I just, my initial gut reaction is that there are enough exclusions and changes that I wanna look at our other options before we decide.
So like I said, increasing deductibles, but on the step you're at, any deductible increase also increases the office visit copay by $5. But everything else stays neutral as far as the emergency room and the prescription drug.
Aren't they, what about the out-of-pockets also?
Well, the
as
other,
well?
yeah, the deductible,
Deductible and-
yeah, the everyday things that the members are used to.
So what happened is, what we want to analyze is, obviously, if the deductible's going up in the out-of-pocket, we want to cover that in the safety fund budget, and are we going to have to, how do we budget for safety fund relative to premium savings, and is there enough premium savings to make?
So have you done all that math?
On one of them I have.
Okay.
I just did a rough one, so I thought that was one of the things we could go over
Excellent.
today, so we'd have some idea.
Okay.
So, Deanna and Amanda would, I think this is a great discussion on that copay, that split copay, because that's probably a conversation we're gonna have each of the next few years, don't you think, eventually? I mean, ultimately, it looks like that's a direction. Wellmark has looked at the claims activity and said, when you're treating all types of office care the same as far as the copay from the insured standpoint, that's a significant claims issue when you figure the specialists are up here and the primary care is down here. So it is going to be a rating issue that we'll probably look at, and so I think it's
It
great
would
that-
be way more palatable had they not excluded the
Yeah.
chiropractic part of it. I mean, the other makes good financial sense as those costs go up. Your office call is $60, $70, and your specialty call might be $200.
And what we're finding out, why they've gone to this concept now, chiropractors are a totally different issue, and I hear where they're coming from. But we have far too many people bypassing a primary care type physician and going right to the specialists. They don't even go to a primary care
That
type.
doesn't require a referral so much anymore.
No.
Not for the plan that you're on today.
Not otherwise. No. And I can't remember what that percentage is, I heard it 40-some
Well,
percent, I think.
the whole growth industry of clinics, and say you got 3 boxes, big boxes in Sioux City, and they build Dakota Dunes. That's just an example of how that industry's gone. You go right to, and you have what used to be considered surgery, and you put you up in the Holiday Inn, and that whole.
Yeah.
Everything's kind of moving down a level in terms of where the procedures are being performed, and it's a good thing that some of the hospital services, used to be an overnight, and now there's a lot of outpatient services that used to be overnight, and the same thing is true, a lot that used to be outpatient is done in the doctor's office. Overall, it's a good thing because we know those are less expensive levels of care. It's just a trend that we have to look at because more things are being performed in the doctor's office, the cost of those visits are going up. I think, I can't tell you the exact numbers, but for a primary care visit, I think runs in Iowa an average of $60, $70, and a specialist on average is gonna be about double that. So, as Tom just said, the trend is, it's just more expensive, and then like Deanne said, when you do have people that are bypassing that PCP, and they're utilizing a doctor that's costing twice as much as their primary care, if they could have gotten it done at that primary care level, it would be a benefit to the plan, and that would be something that, you know, from a standpoint of if the member has no incentive to go to that primary care, they just, I wanna go to that specialist.
Why don't they build it in the plan?
And that's what we're trying to do with those two different copay levels, or even the co-insurance, would be then it would cost them more to go to that specialist.
You know, very honestly though, the co-insurance plans are more costly than the
And
co-pay
yeah.
plans, so.
We may see that built into the plan as time goes on. But then that carries an administrative cost. So, you know, you have to weigh from a consumer standpoint and the rating standpoint, and so if I have to get a referral to go from a primary care physician, and a lot of HMO plans have tried to go that route, and then that brings an administrative burden into it. So you gotta go through the referral process. In this case, Wellmark's gotta manage the paperwork and the information flow for the referral process, and all of a sudden when you start adding that administrative piece in, you pretty soon you look at it and you go, this isn't working so well.
And then
It's costing us-
we make the
it's
press
costing
because
us
we
more
don't
money.
allow something, you know,
Yeah, that's right.
so,
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of a,
It's a catch-22. Unfortunately, we're in a, you know, the way healthcare has gone, it's splintered into specialties, and none of the specialties talk to each other. And we don't, maybe going that way we see, but they don't exchange information very well. So we do get some duplication, and the primary care physician today, there doesn't have to be much before they're moving us into the specialty world as well. So we've kind of got this, just the way that the care is delivered, it forces us sometimes to just, you know, take your example. If I had, you know, if you have a knee problem, where you have, you know, somebody gets hurt in an activity, you just go right to the orthopod. And it's just kind of become the natural, because that's where you're probably going to end up anyway. And then they'll do the x-ray and they'll say, well, I can't tell for sure, and then they'll do the MRI. Because that's the only way that we can tell for sure, and it's kind of, well, maybe we should skip the x-ray then.
What's an MRI cost?
A lot.
They throw those things out like,
Candy.
you know, it used to be a stethoscope,
Yeah.
now they throw those things out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the health industry grew up on a captive audience. All the public, you know, you look how many people work for the government in Sac County, the school district, the county, post office. And it's just been the last year or two, all those millions and millions of employees have got a stake in this. Before it was just paid for automatic, so.
Right. It's changing dramatically.
Nobody ever challenged the way healthcare, it all these beautiful things got built up on a captives, you know, and it's just been the last few years that, you know, people have had to start paying some money out of their own pocket. Now all of a sudden, they're interested in the political debate that's,
The national and the local level here,
I
definitely.
mean, they throw, you know, my mom and dad are old, and, you know, I can't believe how many MRIs they've had in the last 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a growth industry for all those people selling it. So.
We're kind of like what's the story? If you throw the frog into a pot of boiling water, they'll jump right out. If you put them in cool water and then slowly heat it up, well, they put us in cool water and they just kept bringing us more services, and with that, and now all of a sudden the water's boiling. You know, we're looking at the cost and we're all saying, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? But we've gotten used to having that care. And we've gotten used to having access to the care. And,
you know, plus,
Yeah.
you know, liability, MRI, if there is something, so.
That's right. That's right.
Mhm.
Because if I
So
don't,
I don't know where it ends.
Well, that's not very good news, Deanne.
No, I don't know. Hey,
Say
I'm ready, after someday I'm out of here, I'm out of here.
Her swan song.
This is the last day we get to chew you out, right?
It is.
I will say that Wellmark implemented about a year, 2 years ago, an inpatient, what we call clinical risk groupings, where we're trying to get to, if we have a specific condition that needs to be treated in a specific way, trying to say we're only going to cover X amount of services, so things aren't done multiple times if you do see multiple doctors, and we're trying to implement that on the outpatient side too, because we do know that those services have gone downhill with healthcare reform and everything. I mean, so it's just kind of, we're in the boiling pot right now with all these things going on, but there are efforts being undertaken at Wellmark. You know, our goal, and we get bonused on it as a corporate entity, is to be at CPI by 2014. Now that's a huge stretch goal. For our customers to have increases at the level of CPI by 2014. With increases like you guys are seeing, that would be huge, and obviously we can't promise that county's going to be there in 2014, but you know, those are the types of things that we're looking at right now.
That's what has happened, is they've just allowed large increases till 2014. My disappointment was is don't build this for 5 years. You know, we're all going to get 15 to 35% increases for the next 3 years, and then to hope to get to CPI after 2014. It just allowed some major percentage increases to be built in before 2014.
I think, yeah, I mean, you can speak to the 51 to 100 probably better than I can, but
You know, and you've done a good job here. You really,
Thank
really
you.
have.
We-
You know, because your rates, people would love to have your rates, even with this type of increase, you know. And I went back yesterday to 2003, and, you know, it's nothing for me to give 30–40% increases in a year. And I know back to back, you've been hit hard here, but nothing even close to what a lot of my groups have seen. And I think Tom can attest to that as well.
especially with you, we had a few really good
You
years.
had like 4 years.
Well, two that one was a 0 and one went back 0.2%.
Yeah, there were 3 years that I think they haven't changed. I think 1 year they changed it minimal, but, so, you know, it is hard for you to deal with these. You haven't had to deal with it for several years. But again, you have done a good job and your rates do reflect it. But again, you know, almost 103%.
We've been very happy with our relationship with group services, so that's been a very positive thing for us. And it doesn't make it any easier to deal with 16.2, but it has been a good thing. It really has. And I know there was putting another level in there initially was a little abrasive, but it was the right thing to do.
Well, and your employees understand it, and they do appreciate what you give them too. I know
Yeah, I
that.
do
You
too.
got very nice benefits for them.
Because some places they don't do that.
Right. Here it is, too bad. You don't have that other level.
For some places, it's never enough.
And
That is a
you do,
case
you
here.
know, for the employees pay. Very nice.
And I mean, I don't know if you guys do enrollment meetings each year, or you talk to,
They're set up.
they're already set up, okay.
I'll let you
I
know.
know Kelly had talked
Yeah.
to you about the flex piece, but I mean, definitely from my perspective, losing the grandfathered status, I don't think adding the preventive at 100% is all that bad. If we look at trying to manage claims and you've got 30 people over 10,000, we've got some potential for people to go in and hopefully early identify some of these conditions with our age group of our people. From an education standpoint, we need to get these people to the doctor. Let's get you in for your preventive. It's becoming more and more, I mean, obviously with healthcare reform allowing the 100% coverage, but more and more groups are even given an incentive on top of that. If you go to the doctor, they're paying for the time to get there, to see their doctor annually, because we know that if you catch something early, the claims on the backside are so much more favorable than if we're managing a chronic, ongoing, catastrophic condition.
Yeah, I don't think I mentioned that you've got 30 members in your group that we know diagnosis and prognosis is on. We're anticipating next year, those 30 people alone, the claims will run $206,000. So,
What do we do, Tom?
And on that bright note,
I have that, I forgot to mention
that
it
is
to
good.
you.
That's good to
Yeah,
know, though,
yeah.
because you have to know
So,
what's going on in
yeah,
the group.
Yep.
Right.
Just, here, Joe. Split these and probably more than we need there.
Can we listen to you?
Yeah. Actually, if you want, if you guys want to take, you should take one, we can just follow along. There's more, just so you know, there's more pages here than we'll have to go through. So, looking at the clock and you're weighing this, there's a lot of just catch-up information, but if you know, really, we have the two plan designs that we offer to the employees, and really the only difference between the two is in one, the co-insurance after the deductible is 90/10, and the other it's 80/20. So I just included I've included the plan design graphs here more as reference. Unless you want to, I probably won't spend a lot of time on those.
I think our interest is,
In the other,
well, in our safety fund balance and where we can go with that
And what
and our future, what your projected
Yep.
outcome might be.
okay, well then let's just move forward to page 10. Page 10 is the safety fund piece for Plan 1, which is the 90/10 plan. We had budgeted for that plan about 28.3, and we took claims through February and projected them out. We're spending on track. We're spending basically right at the budget for that plan. On the other side is the Plan 2, which is the 80/20 plan, and we did the same thing. We're projected to come in slightly above budget. So when you look at the two combined, we're looking at coming in this year right where we budgeted. Now I've got some numbers in the back here. If you remember, last year on that Plan 2, there was a recommended budget for the safety fund, and then we wanted to keep that family cost at $750, so we budgeted that amount down because we had that reserve. I looked back in the notes, at the time we looked at it last year, we had estimated, we thought we had $230,000 in that reserve, and so we were going to bring that down and spend down some of that reserve. And so I've got it here, but just so you know, based on how that worked, we had projected last year if we spent in terms of the budget that we would spend that reserve down about $70,000, and that's almost exactly where we ended up. I've got it here in a couple of pages, but about $71,000 of that reserve we spent out. So, in case as you look at that, you're wondering how did that work out on Plan 2. So, if you look on page 12 and 13, that's just really a picture of activity in the two plans. Before you look at a number and go, oh my gosh, what's going on? If you look at that Plan 1 and you say, how did we go from 18.2 claims a person to 39 claims a person? We track the numbers. That's an artificially high number. We track the numbers based upon when claims are paid. And so if you remember last year, as we were dealing with the adjustments, pretty much anybody, we did have some people on family coverage in Plan 1. But if they stayed on Plan 1, that was going to, they were going to end up having an out-of-pocket cost because it was going to go above 750, so they all moved over to Plan 2.
Right.
But this still represents, we still had some run-out claims, probably 60 days worth of run-out claims of those families that incurred prior to July 1 that would have gotten paid in here. So it's, the activity is not that high. And then you'll see in Plan 2, in terms of just claims activity, it stayed pretty stable. If I took Deanne and Amanda's numbers and projected them forward, I would say if we had the numbers to break it down, what we probably would see is the average dollar amount of claim per person is going up. So even though our claims activity is the same, it's a higher cost, so it's going from the oil change to having to replace something. And part of that, I did some demographics, you'll see, are part of that. And then on page 14 and 15, it's just a matter of, is it still working for us to buy a high deductible, to go through the hassle of doing some self-funding? Is that cheaper than if we just asked Wellmark to do a fully insured? And so we just like to keep a running total to make sure that it makes sense. And you can see it's continued to save us money. And it's projected through the upcoming year, but we're pushing up against almost $600,000 of savings over that period of time that the county would have otherwise. So it's worked pretty well. That's helped us spend money on other things from a county perspective. So then 16 and 17 is really probably what we've been looking at. And so if we leave, we're spending right at the safety fund budget. If we go into next year and leave the safety fund budget the same, if we don't adjust it, we still would make that decision of whether what we want to do in terms of cost sharing. Do we want to spend any of that reserve? But if we just leave the budget the same without that discussion, we're looking at netting on Plan 1 about an 11.7% increase, and on Plan 2 about a 13.1% increase. And the reason the percentage is different is you'll see that the budget is much higher on Plan 1 than it is on Plan 2.
And really, the only ones that are staying there are the singles.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
As the signal approach their 3-year anniversary, they move in.
Yeah, but the difference in Plan 1 and Plan 2, the singles take the 90-10 plan because they're entitled to it. The families usually go to the 80-20 because of the cost share.
Right, because if you guys will spend up to $750 a month.
That's what.
Get more towards
Yeah.
the family premium paid.
So they stay on the single.
Right.
Their exposure is the same, but if you don't have much in claims, then you pay a little less money because the coinsurance is 90-10
Yeah.
versus 80-20
Yeah.
is really the difference. So you'll see, if you recall, if you look on Plan 2 on page 17, if you look at the family rate, you'll see what we had recommended for the safety fund budget was $142.74, which would have put us at $843.25. What we actually built in for a budget was $49.49, figuring that difference would come out of the reserve. So we'd keep that cost at $750. To keep it at $750, then that would put our budget for the family at $49.49. So that's where we've noted below that difference between those two, and we spent right at the budget, was about, we would have dropped the reserve by about $72,000. So if you go down below, that's part of our discussion this year. If we leave our budget the same and then you build in the increase in premium, we'd be looking at a family rate of $954.10. So again, there's that, I think part of the decision-making process and part of the discussion is we're going to pay $750. We've got that difference now. Do we want to continue to look at this and pay that difference out of the reserve so that the employee on family on plan 2 doesn't have any out-of-pocket costs?
What is that gonna take in dollars then?
I don't have that calculated. Let me give you a rough calculation. Well, if it'd be about 154.3.
And we are currently doing 70,
This year we spent 72. Is that,
well, we were putting in about $50 or $60 from the safety fund this year to.
50.
50?
$50. Yeah, how I got to that 154.3 is I took our family rate based on if we took our budget as our expenditures, our family rate's at 954.10. And if we wanted to be at 750, then that's a difference of $204. So it's really more than we have budgeted. So if I took that 204 times 63 families and took that times 12, that's where I get the 154.3. So as a spread gets wider, if we end up spending the budget, then we start attacking that reserve pretty quickly, because part of what we end up paying out of the reserve is a little bit of the premium cost.
We have our calculated 5 or 6 year savings. What is our reserve balance? What are we actually carrying in cash reserve
I don't
balance?
know that number.
But you can find out what
But
it
they
is.
still should.
Should be around between 155 and 160.
At
Because
least.
at least last year I had in my notes,
I'm thinking it's 2-ish. I think the last time I looked it was 230.
as of April, we met April 6th of last year. At that time, I made a note that it was 230 at that time. So depending on how I don't know if that's something you keep funding, but based on what we did here, it should have come down. If no more money went into the account, if we started at 230, we should have spent about 72,000 of it. Well, it's going to be higher than that now because we annualized the numbers. We took claims through February and annualized that number. If those averages hold true, and there was no new money that went into that account, we should have reduced it by about 72,000.
Would you find out exactly what those are? Thank you.
So then we can figure out.
What we can. afford.
Right. Yeah, because as you, we've got we're in a bit of a vicious cycle. We've got the claims activity. Claims activity is going to then drive the premium. And nobody does very well when they receive $1 and pay out $1.03. The math just doesn't end up working very well. So as that premium goes up because of those claims, then it makes that spread between what it should be and the 750 greater, and so then we more rapidly eat up that reserve. Yeah.
And I know prior to last year, or maybe 2 years ago, you offered a third option.
Right.
Nobody was on that one. I didn't
Yeah,
think-
I know,
Yeah, I mean, it was
but
moved.
maybe with what's happening here, you need to
Mhm.
Reconsider. That's a good point.
I mean, you've done it for years, so it's not that it's not out there.
If we look.
And we're already being penalized, not being grandfathered for changing the plans.
Yeah, that's not gonna change that.
We're already been.
Well, technically, we still have 3 plans. Nobody's
Okay,
on the third
okay,
plan,
okay.
but
There was no
Okay.
benefit to
Right.
be on, but
I
it
remember
is a
what
good
the
point
plan is.
for the upcoming discussion that,
but we'll need
Offer
to
a
go
plan
through
that
what plans
costs
those are,
no penalty.
right, that's right.
because I don't either.
I've got it.
Cool.
Yeah, just FYI, Amanda just asked if you looked at HMO type plans. I mean, they are options here, but again, those are the plans where they have to name their primary care and receive. And I said in this area, it just does not seem to work.
And I had a discussion with the hospital administrator, and we've had another company make a presence here. Blue Cross is the gorilla in the room, and that they're all associated locally with Blue Cross, and don't have a lot of associations outside of Blue Cross.
Right. But I mean, these plans, they have contracts for them. People have to name their primary care provider, in most cases, or stay within the network. So if they wanted to go to South Dakota, it's not going to work for them. If they want to go Oklahoma.
It's a very similar network within Iowa, but if you would want to go to a specialty type hospital for cancer, if you want to go to Mayo Clinic, if you want to go to Omaha, I mean, those would not be covered, except for emergency only.
I know we talked about it. Guys like the freedoms. And they're more popular in the Des Moines area than they are in western Iowa.
Big, small.
Well, it's a provider.
Well, you've got providers coming in from out of state, so there are issues there.
And everything's very well organized.
Should think that.
But what I'm looking for is I did pencil up, what if we move to the next higher deductible, as the Amanda had suggested. And I have that here.
Section 4 does go through those HMO options if you are curious. There's 3 levels of HMO plans. Like Dan said, it sounds like you've already kind of ruled that out, but there is potential savings. So you are looking at a third option, so from, again, more restrictive network, more restrictive in terms of the process that the employee goes through. But
And that's, the third option idea is a good, legitimate option.
Yeah, I looked at, if we move to the next higher deductible, which is the $2,500 deductible, it's the same plan, it's the one that Deanne mentioned. If you move to that, the office visit copay that Blue Cross provides goes from 25 to 30. Everything else stays the same.
Except maximum out of pocket.
Right, so what it would mean to Sac County is that our exposure per person out of the self-fund would go, it's currently, the most we could pay is $5,000.
6,000. Oh, that you pay.
Yeah, that out of the self-fund. That would, and I can put this in a better form, but it would go up to $6,500 per person. So then what we looked at is I looked at the two plans. So if you took plan one, if everything stayed the same, we would look at a premium savings of about $6,745. Based on the enrollment, we would build an additional budget into the safety fund of about $3,000. So we would net about an 8.5%. Now, keep in mind, you may want to build more cushion into your budget because the risk is at the county level if you go over budget. But that would move us from about an 11. If you work with the budget numbers we have now plus that addition, then we would be looking at, instead of an 11.7, about an 8.5 on plan one. On plan two, because that's where it's a bigger cost because of the families, we'd be looking at a premium savings of about $43.7, and then we estimated building into the budget another 20, building above what we have now, another 26.5 for that extra exposure. So that would get us down, if that's what we did, we'd be at a 13.1% going down to about a 10.4. Or a family rate, instead of a 954.10, 932 roughly.
Just looking at the numbers, what are you, at first glance, what are you recommending?
I was hoping to see a little more savings. I have a because based on what, just looking at the claims trends and how those claims trends are reflected in the self-funded portion, one of the trends that it looks like is happening is, and I brought a 5-year history, but historically we've come in slightly below budget, but that margin is narrowing. So that tells me that our frequency on the self-funded piece, that tells me as a group overall, our frequency of claims are going up faster than we, so then all of a sudden that would tell me we're probably too conservative in our safety fund budgeting. And so when you have to build more into the safety fund piece, and that margin between how much extra safety fund we're building in versus the premium gets close, then all of a sudden it really doesn't make much sense. And I don't think we have that. I think that's a whole separate issue that we should talk about in detail. Is that we've got some trends here that aren't favorable to us in terms of claims activity. If we don't really dig in and take a look at some of that, then Amanda's is going to have to come in and say, based on the claims activity, you had a pool adjustment, which had nothing to do with your claims, but we had to make a group risk adjustment because of the claims activity. And so now, we're going to not be very happy with the renewals going forward either. And so, were we just lucky those 2 years, a few years ago? Or is what's happening, can we figure out what's happening on the group that's caused these last 2 years claims experience to not be good? And then as Deanne said, you just look at 30 people on our group are already, it's already projected over 200,000 and just amongst that group. That's assuming nobody else joins the party.
Well, but you deal with the hand that you're dealt, and in a lot of those cases, we can't change that. I mean, you,
Adding the 9 grandfathers is gonna make all the difference in the world.
you just got us for 3% because of that grandfather deal.
It's just gonna go out of
Healthier people. Happier people.
So you're gonna guarantee that?
You can guarantee anything.
Yeah.
Fear again.
Yeah, I'm out of here.
Amanda, are you?
I would say the same.
Love the center of the new building.
Yeah.
Amanda, I know that on the ISAC side, ISAC's making some moves where they're incorporating some wellness pieces in, and if the counties follow meet the objectives, they could achieve up to a 5% reduction in rates. Do you foresee anything like that happening outside of the ISAC trust as far as Wellmark's concerned?
No, I mean, I definitely, with this move downwards, myself handling these smaller groups, I think, you know, we're gonna be looking at the 51 potentially to 100 like a larger group. And, you know, there's a couple things that are happening. You know, utilization's going up for lots of reasons. You know, you've got people that are aging, you've got economic stresses, people losing jobs, spouses are coming on plans that weren't before, those type of things. But just generally speaking, deductibles are going up. I mean, if you look at the average employer in Iowa, public, private, both, it's $750, it's $1,000. So from one standpoint, I think a lot of the counties in ISAC have said, we're gonna look at our union contracts and potentially move up our deductibles. We know costs have gone up across the board, so because of all these outside factors, we're gonna adjust those. So I mean, again, because you're getting diminishing returns on the partial self-funding piece, maybe that's something to consider. On the other side, we know there's little we can increase the employees' cost share with deductibles and all that, but that doesn't decrease our overall risk. So that's where like ISAC has basically taken the strategy that their wellness initiatives, we talked about this a little bit earlier, they're giving employees $250 if they complete their physical and wellness online assessment. So paid 100%, just like your SAC counties will be this next year, and then those employees actually get a $250 incentive because ISAC has seen those catastrophic claims, those 30 people we're talking about have amounted to so much risk, that we feel like if we can impact just a couple people out of that, it's going to save us way more money in the long run than what that $250 per employee is. So those are the types of things, I think, plan design, and then secondly, you know, wellness initiatives to try to encourage people to go see their doctor. Because the reality is, not everybody does. And hopefully that helps, like you said, Rick, you can't do anything about the ones that are there already, but you can try to prevent the ones that are potentially, where people are at risk for diabetes, they're, you know, catch a cancer earlier, all the things that could happen potentially, we can do things for the future. So that's what I'm seeing. That's what ISAC's done. There's other groups that are doing those types of things from a larger group perspective, and I think it can work at your level too.
Can you build us a couple different scenarios?
Yeah.
As far as getting some things together to give us several options as far as what, when we confirm our reserve balance, to see what we have there and what kind of activity, how that will affect that, and then a couple several plan options with I think the third plan that now is going to probably need to be offered.
Right. Yeah.
You know, thinking about increasing deductible, increasing our
That'd be one scenario.
Yeah, what I can do is do bookends. So one of the bookends might be, this is what the plan would have to look like to keep the family rate at $750.
That'd be one end of the spectrum.
So you'd have that bookend and then the other bookend, and then we could build it from there, and then we could get the reserve numbers. That'll give us a better idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
We didn't plan on being here all day.
I'll make it a little over an hour.
CSAC has essentially used their reserve that they've built up over the year to fund these types of programs. So as you have that money available, that's another option, you know, then there's a million different things you can do.
So, yeah, I'll do that. There's just a couple other things that I wanted to run through. Part of it is I want to, so often we look at these renewals, we look at each year, 1 year in a compartment, and next year in a compartment, and we don't really look at trends. So I've included some extra sheets in your folder. Jack, you've got them right there. They should, yeah. So the first thing I did was I just wanted to give you a picture of, and this may help from is what's happened over the last 4 years with the self-funded part of the plan. How much did we have budgeted or built into the rates? And how much did we actually spend? So we can see over that 4-year period, typically we've come in under budget. And so that's partly the reward to the county in addition to the premium savings. So it just gives us a snapshot of how is that done. And the second one just shows what's happened with our cost based on if we'd have been fully insured versus going to the safety solution. And it shows you that gap, how that's worked for us. It just gives us a running total so we can watch that. The third sheet, I think, and I think Amanda and Deanne have done a good job of going over this. I won't spend a lot of time, but it just shows you what's happened with our charges that are incurred and the claims paid. And I think we touched on it earlier, one of the things that's a little disconcerting about this year's numbers is part of those are under a higher deductible. And Walmart was still paying more, so that there's that claims activity that we have to be concerned about. But the last one is really the one I wanted to, because I think this is a growing issue for a lot of employers in a lot of counties. We just took your group and broke it demographically into age groups to just try and look at the makeup of the group and what it might look like going forward. And the thing that it's kind of a broken record. These pictures all look the same, but if you look at your 55 and older category, you've got 27 people in that category, and those are your most likely candidates for retirement. So we've got 31% of our group. I think the issue that we have potentially there is in the state of Iowa, someone retires, they have to be allowed to stay on the plan. It's really an extended COBRA. You don't have to pay any of the premium. I don't know if you have a policy on that, but the fact is you continue to have the risk.
No, the retired employee, if they choose to stay on, pays the premium.
Okay. And so we don't have the premium cost if they retire, but we do have the claims risk cost. And if you look at retiree groups, the claims activity and the ratios there are generally not favorable. So you're likely going to fill those in maybe with some younger people, but that may become a bit of a risk underwriting issue. I don't know. And then 65% of your group is over 45. So I think there's some unique issues you'll face as a county as it relates to not only filling positions, but the demographic look of your group, and whether or not having a growing retiree class, what kind of an impact does that have, number one. Number two, if you start to do, you know, a lot of the times you do, we could talk about, and I think it makes sense to do some ideas on wellness. It's pretty hard to touch the retirees with that. I mean, you lose contact with them. You don't
I
have the
don't know
day
how
job.
many retirees you have on
We
your-
really don't, we very seldom have any, and
We don't have
stay
any at the moment.
they normally stay till Medicare, and so
Right.
They tell me they're
we just don't have.
You know, the thing, and you're no different than any other county, you've got long-term employees that are here until they retire.
That's right.
You know, you don't have the turnover, so you don't bring in the younger bodies. They're the only ones that are- huh?
Hell,
Supervisor.
Average age is, well, we've been here 9 years, but, you know, there's a lot of older, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're kind of still.
Yeah.
in the
I
crowd
mean,
a little bit.
look at
agree
I'm
with
60,
that.
I'm gonna be 61, and I'm kind of on the young half anyway. That's changed a little bit. But,
You find young, right?
yeah,
Well, no, quite frankly, when we looked around the room the first time in the statewide meeting, we were very young in the group, and now we're starting to see have been some
Yeah.
young people in the last 3-4 years that we weren't seeing 10 years ago.
But like I said, county employees in general, they retire. They don't leave to go to another job, they retire.
Yeah.
And if these people are retiring early, it's kind of like the same thing as COBRA, because it's so expensive, they're only gonna take it if they absolutely need it. So you could have some people that do have pretty high risk that are in that category. Sounds like you haven't had many early retirees lately.
We just haven't, very few.
And it's hard, I mean, in this day and age, it's hard with the economy how it is to make those kind of decisions.
Everyone needs to stay there till Medicare
Yeah.
kicks in, and that's pretty much been the rule.
Okay, good.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. We'll see you in a month or soon.
Yeah, when will you?
Yeah, let me sit down,
That's
take a
March.
look at the numbers, and can I call you and give you a timeline? Yeah, but it would be no more than that.
Sounds good.
Because we've got meetings in May, early May.
Yep, early May, like the
So
third.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, sooner the better.
Yeah.
Would be.
Well, we'll need to have them before then, so that
Oh, yeah.
people can
so we know.
decide what plan they need to be on.
Yeah, it won't be very long. I've got to talk to Brenda in the office. This is how well I've been trained. I no longer give timelines without talking to Brenda. She does all the work.
Specialization.
She does all the work. I just come out,
Did you say that
drive and
Kelly
drink
knows when
coffee.
the meetings are already, or
Who does?
did you say that Kelly on my team knows when the?
I think so, but I'll
Okay,
look
I'll
at my
check.
calendar before you leave and I'll give you a
Okay.
date.
Is there anything else you need to see while I'm doing the?
I mean, I think those are just discussing our viable options.
Okay.
Don't you think?
And you want to clean up that reserve balance.
That's well done.
You know, I already have that.
It's good to meet everybody. Has the
Yeah.
annual report? I do, yeah.
That's fine.
West side of the states is my stomping grounds though, so I'm more than there from a work perspective.
Thanks, Deanna.
Thank
For
you.
your years of
You
service.
guys
Good luck
have
with
been-
whatever you-
Enjoy.
Your next project.
You've been interesting.
I'll pull her back in when you guys, say she's promised something.
The last time she left, she didn't have any grandchildren. I don't think 2 of your kids were even married. And then you came back and your grandmother and
All kinds of things happen. Now you make every back, so don't cheer too loud.
She's only a phone call away from me, so.
Well, thank you for
Closer to
everything.
them.
Thank you.
I'll get you those dates, Amanda.
Okay, great. We'll
Tom,
sit
don't
down.
forget your briefcase and your coat.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Tom.
Good to see you.
You too.
I'll put those together and we can
Okay.
see.
I mean, that's kind of the best for
We'll look at the book ends and work back.
Yeah,
from there.
that's the
So
way
I'll
to do
throw
it.
that plan 3 back in. I just didn't throw it in this time.
Yeah, and we, until the last couple of days, we had no clue what we're getting, so.
Okay, all right. Thanks for giving us so much time.
You bet.
Done? Chairman?
Sheriff, have everything? Oh, just one sheriff.
Pretty good.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Also moved.
I'll second.
There's some more stuff.
Oh, it's,
I,
we are adjourned.
Got a question.